This is a live look of the Ukrainian city of Kyiv. It is under an overnight curfew at this hour, with many of the city lights being turned off. It comes after Russia launched a deadly attack on the country early this morning, local time. It is 2 a.m. there right now. The president of Ukraine is now ordering all men of fighting age and reservists to stay in the country and be ready to fight. Meanwhile, the United States and other NATO countries are also responding to the attack with a package of new sanctions against Russia.
The Russian military launched more than 100 ballistic and cruise missiles into Ukraine last night. President Biden says with that, President Putin declared his war.
Putin's aggression against Ukraine will end up costing Russia dearly, economically and strategically. We will make sure of that.
A senior defense official telling ABC News the president is sending an additional 7,000 troops heading to Germany to reassure NATO allies. President Biden earlier today meeting with his counterparts of the G7, agreeing to move forward on what he calls devastating packages of sanctions and other economic measures to hold Russia to account. This as a minority of the 150,000 Russian troops continue to advance into Ukraine from the east, from Belarus in the north, and from the south in Crimea. Overnight, Russian President Putin declaring the beginning of what he calls a special military operation in Ukraine. Ukrainian officials now reporting Russian troops have reportedly taken full control of the exclusion zone around Chernobyl nuclear power station, including the plant itself. Troops also seizing an airport less than 20 miles away from Ukraine's capital of Kyiv. President Zelensky addressing his people today, saying what we're hearing was the sound of a new Iron Curtain lowering and closing Russia away from the civilized world. He also added that while Ukraine has suffered losses, they are fighting back and have captured some Russian soldiers. Many Ukrainians in several cities are preparing for the uncertainty ahead, lining up to withdraw money from banks and stocking up on gas and other supplies. Western Ukraine and Poland are also bracing for an influx of refugees fleeing the fighting and bombing. President Biden says he has no intention of speaking with President Putin at this moment. He also says he thinks Putin wants to go beyond Ukraine. He says if he goes into NATO countries, the U.S. will get involved, but he says he does not believe that this conflict will last a very long time. Reporting from Washington, Zoreen Shah, ABC News.
One of the people watching this conflict very closely is Idaho State University political science professor Dr. Colin Johnson. He did much of his doctorate work in Russia and Ukraine. He says part of the problem is a difference in the understanding of what is the best future for Ukraine.
Certainly when we think about the Ukrainian people, much less the Russian people, there's a disconnect. And we can certainly see the more authoritarian regime in Russia has calculated that this is the best move for them. But it's taken the Russian people by surprise. And certainly when we consider the European continent, not to mention ourselves, it's something that we had just not considered as an option until really in the last few weeks. So this has been a rapidly escalating situation, and it has taken everyone by surprise, I think.
Coming up tonight on Local News 8 at 6 o'clock, we will talk more with Dr. Johnson about the people he is in touch with in the area and what this invasion means for the people of Ukraine and what other impacts it could have on the entire world. Now, U.S. Senators for Idaho Jim Risch and Mike Crapo have both issued statements about the situation going on in Ukraine. Senator Risch, who is a ranking member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, had this to say, quote, "Today's invasion of Ukraine by Russia is a premeditated and flagrant act of war. Despite committed efforts to find a diplomatic solution, Putin has violated the border of a sovereign country. Putin has always used force to take what he wants. These are not the actions of a proud nation and people, but the actions of a desperate man whose only desire is to sow chaos in order to make himself look strong. The repercussions of this invasion will be painful and swift. The only way to avoid this reality is for Putin to reverse course immediately," end quote. And here is the statement from Senator Crapo, quote, "Russia's premeditated attacks on Ukraine must swiftly be met with additional crushing economic sanctions. The U.S. should not put American troops on the ground, but must continue to provide the lethal militaristic tools and technology necessary for Ukraine to defend itself against this barbaric regime. My prayers for safety remain with the innocent people of Ukraine," end quote. The conflict there in Ukraine will also have an impact here in the United States. ABC's Rena Roy looks at the top concerns.
America on high alert, with authorities warning Russia may launch cyber warfare against the United States.
Think about the effect of one piece of malware. Russia literally has not tens or hundreds, but thousands of cyber tools that they could launch.
The Department of Homeland Security and the FBI have sent out bulletins in recent weeks with instructions on how to protect computer networks.
For months, we've been working closely with the private sector to harden our cyber defenses, sharpen our ability to respond to Russian cyber attacks as well.
Private companies and local officials across the country ramping up defenses.
We have strengthened our defense. We just put another $1 billion available to New York and other states to strengthen cyber defense. Cyber is a very, very serious front.
Potential targets include the electrical grid, communications and mobile networks, oil and gas pipelines, water treatment facilities, and the U.S. banking system. This as the stock market takes a hit. The Dow down more than 700 points Thursday morning after Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Oil prices also skyrocketing to more than $100 per barrel for the first time since 2014, as the U.S. already deals with historic inflation.
The oil prices will be the most immediate effect because they will filter through to gasoline prices, fuel prices, and that will lead to a pinch essentially on consumers' pockets in an environment where we've already seen very high inflation affect consumers' ability and willingness to spend.
We're already seeing some effects at the pump that are only expected to get worse. The average gas price across the country right now is $3.54 a gallon. In California, an all-time record high of $4.77. Rena Roy, ABC News, New York.